Right guys, welcome to VALORANT News. The World Championship is now well underway, some major results happening so far in the group stages, especially some big scalps getting taken early on and some pretty decent upsets at that. FNS's reaction to Liquid not being the team that maybe we thought they would be going into this big event, and some major blunders happened yesterday on multiple regards. How's that going to continue when we go to Group D and then Group B shortly after that? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Let's dive into things. Thought that was a pretty funny start there with Durka casting champs just for a little moment. Now, it is also worth discussing here the way that this venue is again, right? So this is the venue, if you guys are unfamiliar, for the World Championship. It doesn't really look to me like, I mean, come on. This doesn't look like a World Championship level venue, in my opinion. We talked about this in some detail yesterday. Now, instead of just roasting them again, I think the question did then become, okay, maybe the venue is just not good enough. And you could argue that compared to some other cities, Paris is likely not the cheapest city to run such an event in, which is a fair assessment more than likely. I don't know venue prices off the top of my head, but people were suggesting that, okay, maybe doing it in Istanbul, for example, cheaper than doing it in Paris. But the venue maybe is actually perfectly fine. It's just the way that it's been set up, one could say. This was a tournament. I mean, actually, Bodog mentioned what it was. So, yeah, the LEC Roadshow in France. So, you know, also Riot organized. Their setup was like this. So instead of having, look, the face-to-face stuff in Valorant is quite nice. I think generally it works, but I think it works best as a center of a massive arena, right? So kind of what they had over in Tokyo recently, when you've got a center stage and then like a full audience basically entirely surrounding it. That is perfect for a kind of center stage head-to-head setup. If the venue isn't perfect for that, with the setup and the amount of people you can have there, this is probably a more sensible way to go. And you can see that already this image looks, you know, more serious. I don't know that the lights are off, so there's a bit more contrast here, but you can see that the way the crowd is kind of funneling up back through, and they've got the teams side by side on the stage. And yeah, it's maybe not as optimal. You could also slant these just very slightly if you wanted to. But from a few angles, this seems like a more intelligent way to have done it than what they've actually done, which looks a little bit more like this. Now, I know that there's different angles, different pictures, but yeah, that's just my opinion. Into your thoughts, as always, in the comments. Now, let's dive into some of the drama, because there were some big games going on yesterday. DRX, they were opening up their tournament. Team Liquid, they were opening up their tournament. And how was it going to transpire? Well, not in a good way for Team Liquid at all. Now, I think the Team Liquid here, and Nats especially, played so far below their level that I think, you know, there is potentially still more to come. I wouldn't say this group is, like, over yet, exactly, in terms of potential, but this was a confusing series, to say the least, and lots of reaction to it, and understandably from multiple different sources. I mean, this kind of summed it up, really. Like, early doors, DRX had taken an early 3-0 lead, and then Nats here on the Abyss is trying to make the play around the outside, and, well, the rest is history, right? He falls straight off the map. So, I think this kind of summed up Nats' whole afternoon, to be honest. And look, DRX, they turned up with Bayon, right? So there were questions as to who their player was either going to be. We knew that Estrella wasn't traveling with them, so then we wondered, okay, is it going to be this new guy Flicker that they've brought in? Is it going to be Bayon instead? Is he going to return? And as a result, before the matchup and even before the tournament, there were lots of questions about DRX and whether they were going to be anywhere near good enough to actually be competitive this tournament. We know that historically, they are excellent in group stages and they are excellent at getting top 6. It doesn't seem especially likely that's going to change. So I wanted to show a couple of clips here, especially from FNS, reacting to Shanks, but also just giving his thoughts on, look, Liquid maybe are not as good as we thought that they might have been, despite being, in many people's estimations, potentially the third most likely team to win the entire tournament going in. That is not the start they would have looked for, but also in a later series, too, with NRG versus Edward Gaming, throwing up some absolute banging results.
The damage here, well, the AWP has been picked back up, but it makes it a lot closer than it might seem. Patatek and Camo have been.
I think we just plan at A, honestly. This is top 10 overcooked, but whatever.
But Liquid need to be so careful not
Why
to
did Nats TP?
DRX
Nats just TP'd!
already
What the
forward.
fuck?
They baited
What
back over the open
the
with the
fuck?
tap,
Are you
another
fucking
tap
kidding
coming
me?
through.
Are you
The
fucking
Scars
kidding?
in the
Are you
previous
fucking...
round where the defuse was stuck. Still showing here he needs to pay.
This is not us right now, bro.
This is legit.
That's how good Gen.G TP!
For DRX.
That's how good Gen.G TP!
How have they
Kan vi köra gamer? Kan vi köra gamer? 2v3 get Gen.G TP! That's how! Mong TP again, I'm TP again, I guess.
Last round he sticks him from the very
Oh
beginning.
my
This guy's had their name on it, and that means they need to make it out of the groups, but they're looking to do it in style. Kiko is all that stands in their way, and of course it's flashback to deal the final blow. A late change for this roster, and a change that seems to have brought them right back to the tip top of the tier 1.
Fuck, my fucking head is too big! For this fucking jersey!
At the hands of DRX, a team that may not even have been here. They are rifled out of their control, but they are making the most of their appearance
How,
as
John?
VALORANT champions.
John, how? How did we lose? How many times did we get
Bro, I told you, Liquid
Get
ain't
how
that
Get
nice.
TP! 1v2 Get TP! The Kumga makes sense? The Kumga makes sense? Oh my god.
Kung, and there goes Scuba. Now what? So on the other side of that high tide, Marta chimes in for close down, and that's the spray for two. It's on Chichu and Kung to stop the overtime. But it's Marta now ready to receive around the corner and straight down the abyss. We get overtime.
Holy fuck,
In our
no
first match of
way,
the
yo.
series.
No
It
way,
doesn't
yo.
get any better than this.
They choked
And you have to
11-2.
believe that all of NRG's work was for naught when those players go down, when it's left to just summon Mata. What on earth? That transfer from Ethan with the Vandal catches Ginny on the entry. And Mata holding the cross.
Some with the correction there as well.
And just lives for a bit. Mata pushes onto Chichu, ready for the jump.
Look at Strong.
Unbelievable.
Like, come on, man. Like, come
How
on,
have
man.
they done it? EDG were up 10-2. 10-2 the new 9-3
can't make it up.
Everyone broke.
Nance's teleport there, still living rent-free, right? Accidental or not, like clearly a major mistake that defines the way that that bind eventually went. The Abyss, they'd already lost 13-8. They had a chance of a comeback on the bind, but yeah, Nats 3-12, you're not going to see that every day. And then the binds, Nats played a little bit better, but as we saw, that major mistake with DRX eventually pulling off the comeback to take the game despite a shaky start on the start of the second half, right? I mean, at this point, it was 9-6 in the favor of Team Liquid. They went down 13-10. So a shocking series from Liquid. I think DRX played very well, but yeah, Liquid nowhere near, I think, what they've shown that they can play at. But equally, maybe as FNS says, they're simply not all that good, and maybe they're just not good enough. And DRX on the international stage, certainly at the World Championship, they turn into a different force, certainly in the group stages. And look, historically, look at this, it's pretty crazy. At an international tournament, these are their results. In 2021 as Vision Strikers, of course, but then DRX over the last couple of years, they have always won their opening games, and yeah, it's happened again this season too. So pretty remarkable. Where we go from here, I guess we'll see, but yeah, it's happened again, right? A couple of times this year they've had to play it. Maybe eventually this won't happen again, but for now it is. There was understandably some reaction here as well. Valo to Asia says, damn, look at this, you had DRX in 14th and Liquid at 3rd. I mean, look, I think this power ranking in many respects was perfectly reasonable. Yeah, Liquid were going to be highly rated after just winning EMEA in pretty impressive fashion. You know, Liquid, you couldn't really put them lower than 4th, even if you tried, just because they just won Europe, and Europe looked pretty competitive as of late. Giant X, they beat in the finals, and Giant X just beat Sentinels, for example. Then DRX, look, DRX's ranking being particularly low here is just because of all the questions around their team, right? Australia not traveling with them, who knows what's going to happen? Could you justify DRX being higher than this? Yeah, sure you could, but it's difficult to justify them being too much higher given all the questions about their team. But still, they've turned up, they've delivered a great result in the first round. Mako says that was the most positive teamwork that I've ever seen, and they are definitely going to stick this out for the rest of the tournament, right? Bayon will continue to start in place of Estrella for the rest of the tourney. The other crazy game, I mean, honestly, this was unbelievable, was Edward Gaming. Kankang after the series pretty much said, look, if we got better at closing out games, we'd be fine. Because Edward still, they showed a lot of promise here, right? They showed a lot of potential here in the series. They showed glimpses of that Edward from last year's World Championship. But somehow they found a way to lose both of these maps against NRG. Now, I had NRG as my favorite for this series, and I think for good reason. But, I mean, still, the way that they won it was actually so impressive. And I think from NRG's perspective, winning a series like this could be so important to their team, because to know that you can be down 10-2, take a game to overtime and win it 17-15 in the overtime is incredible mental fortitude. And fair play to Edward. After losing that game, I might have expected them to roll over and die. They didn't. They actually started pretty well. I mean, they tied up the half 6-6 on the Corrode. And then in the end, NRG just about got over the line. So, yeah, remarkable series. It would go down. It was a 2-0, but it was certainly not a clean 2-0 by any means from either team's perspective. And as Ethan says, you know, feels good to be back. Som says, no, you guys enjoyed that one. What a comeback. And, yeah, Marder also, I think, gave some thoughts as well and says, doesn't matter who we play, doesn't matter how much we're down. 2-0 versus Edward Gaming. They, of course, will play DRX in the next round. So this is how it looks. DRX NRG coming up in a couple of days. We've got PaperX GiantX coming up in a couple of days. And today, in a few hours' time, we get Demon1 back in action. So he's playing T1 later today. That is a crucial series because XLG, they may lose to Sen. They may bomb out last place. If they do, then DRG only need one series win to beat them. Do I back DRG to beat either G2 or Heretics in the elimination rounds? Think that's going to be tough. Beating I mean, look, I think Heretics and T1 are both beatable for DRG. Like, who knows? Maybe they're absolutely godlike with Demon1 and they can beat G2 as well. But this is a very important series for their even future in the league next season, and I'm excited to see Demon1 back in action. T1 were like a team that I really liked, if you guys remember, at the start of the season, and I still do like the team, but I'm excited to see where these guys go from here. So those are the matches of today. Then tomorrow it is the final group which is in action, which of course is going to be Group B. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.